Alright, so what I made for the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure play concept for projection, which is a Comic Sans title card, cool transitions, and time travel or wormhole PNG. I also made this. I made an entire play concept, so let's go over it. Lobotomy Corporation, a dark comedy play. So, it's based off the horror game by the Korean company Project Moon, which turns the very stressful management simulator into an acted play, with very mysterious and unnatural abnormalities used to make energy, a very intense plot. It's surprising it's not been made into a play yet, but I'll just go over some pros and cons now just to go, say maybe why we wouldn't want to do them. So the pro is everyone can act because everyone would be needed for a full staff. Extras, especially, like, you wouldn't want to have 4 main characters running a facility full of 84 abnormalities, or around that number. And really, the extras could have a time to shine because I'm having it where there would be a no main character. And Tech Theater gets to go absolutely wild in creating props or just designing things. So props and gets to really shine. It's a horror game, which is probably going to turn down a lot of younger audiences because that game is slightly gruesome. And we're not going to be able to show everything from the game because we wouldn't have both the funding and time constraints. And also, I would be more than happy to write and direct an entire play, just in case you want to. So let's go over the plot. So it's 3 acts, and it goes for the entire length of the game. So about 50 days, but only at some major points. So there is more emphasis on agents and clerks, who are the employees, and the utter suffering that they're going to go through because they work at Lobotomy Corporation. It's going to show why it's called Lobotomy Corporation, which is because it's giving you enough stress to kill a man or want to lobotomize yourself. And with an accurate clip-loth, I don't know how you actually pronounce that, meltdowns, very iconic abnormalities that cause extreme chaos, and the casual coldness of how the facility manages itself. Now, of course, you need some characters. But since no character will take up too much time, because most likely everyone will die, go mad, or become possessed by an abnormality, there are a couple characters who will stick to it, though. There's the manager or the player, who sits in the background for the majority of the play, the entirety, but they will always have the loudest voice because they're the ones technically making the show run. I mean, technically we're making the show run, but you get the point. And then there's Bong Bong, who's very whimsical. They're a very iconic character. So 2 original characters, who are Billy. They work in the security department. They wear the Silent Orchestra ego armor and have their weapon, which is called the capo. And I will explain those in props. And he's generally just the I am so done with life sort of personality. There's Dr. Michelin von Hamburg von Faux, who has I just made the ridiculously long name because it's funny. They are a short-tempered French being working in the information department and have the Twilight ego armor at a certain point. Before that, they will have the standard setup. And there are probably going to be a lot of other characters, but I haven't thought of any yet, so... So here are some just examples. So this is how Bon Bon canonically looks. This is just an idea. You get it. And we can't show every abnormality, of course, because that would take way too much time to make every single one without having to resort to PNGs, which, and also some of them are definitely not school appropriate. So we can show a couple iconic ones. There's Punishment Bird, who's just this tiny little bird. I'll show the photos. Judgment Bird, Big Bird, Nothing There, who is kind of disgusting, and the Silent Orchestra. Then there's White Knight, or the Plague Doctor, There's One Sin and 100 Good Deeds, who's the default, so we technically have to show him. There's the Apocalypse Bird, Funeral of the Dead Butterflies, Open Can of Well Cheers, Crumbling Armor, and Blue Star. And I will point to every single one. Punishing Bird, Judgment Bird, Big Bird, nothing there, he's kind of disgusting. Silent Orchestra, White Knight / the Plague Doctor, this is in his White Knight form. One Sin, Funeral of the Dead Butterflies, Well Cheers, Armor, Crumbled Armor, Blue Star, and the Apocalypse Bird. Costumes. Everything can be pulled from the games because it's not really that hard to recreate, since all human characters have a three-piece suit with an armband indicating which department they're in. Albeit Ego Armor, which looks like this, has a different style. The problem may come with not having enough suits, but that can probably be rectified pretty easily. Also, here's some Ego suits I might want to see. So here's Twilight. This is the Silent Orchestras. I forgot what it's called, and this is Funeral of the Dead Butterflies with their ego weapon, Solemn Lament. Lighting's going to be really, really easy because you're going to want to have very defaulted lighting because you don't want to have to change the lighting for every single hallway. But for things, there are going to be situational or mood lights because those are kind of important. Yellow, orange, or red are the warning lights for something going on. Big Bird has an ability to turn off all lights within a hallway or room and can be a convenient excuse for having a blackout or scene change. And lighting is actually going to be really easy because there's not that much needed. Set design. Certain rooms will have certain uses. There's going to have to be lobbies because that's where all the staff go at the end of the day, / beginning of the day. And that's where, those are just kind of general chatting area. Hallways, those are relatively easy because it's just maybe a door. It's just maybe two doors, some some little techie stuff, technological, wiring going through there. And containment chambers, which will have just one door on stage left, as this is how they appear in game. And thankfully, there's not that much really needed, so it's really easy to make and set up. Though there's probably going to be a lot of scene transitions, but I will have a way to rectify this on a later slide. So let's get to it. Props. Props gets to go completely wild, since ego weapons, their gifts, which are just their special little extra stuff you can sometimes earn on a rare chance. Abnormalities, and generally everything has an interesting design I would really like to see. I mean, we're going to have stuff like security batons and some guns, though we probably won't have enough. Those are easy, we already have those. Other things like the ego weapons themselves will probably have to be made from adding on to other props, because they're mostly swords and staffs. There will probably be a requirement for imitating stretchers because it emphasizes slightly the dangerous working environment. Because I also don't really think we would have the time to make body dupes or anything like that, because, I think I'll get to that. Sound, we can just use the sound effects and soundtrack from Lobotomy Corp. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, we can even use it during intermission, so projections. So you can do the data board for the abnormalities, just alerts, like first, second, and third trumpet, some character stats, the abnormality picker for which god-awful creature gets sent in from the depths, the title card, daily tasks, and potentially even some gameplay I might be able to get. Stage management. This is a long one. As said prior, everyone can be an extra. Even if you're just moving props or set, the facility would have to be fully staffed in order to function properly. Though Theater Blacks can be used for clerks who are just maintenance workers in the fullest sense. Honestly, in all honesty, it's just, you could go in the company required suit or go in just regular Theater Blacks and it would be acceptable because they're going to fit, because it would be accurate. Actually, and to counter the whole way too many people too much difficulty with scene transitions, you could have runners be on in the walkway on stage because that would be realistic. And I would actually encourage that because, or it's like they're fleeing or fighting abnormalities or improvising an entire minor character around stage. The only rule would be not to interfere with the main plot of certain characters, especially not the manager, because you cannot canonically see him or her. Hair and makeup. This is a big one. Despite the gacha art style of Lobotomy Corporation, employees die in a pretty gory way. So while the structure is pretty good, lots of fake blood is definitely going to be needed, along with designs for scars and other sustained injuries later on. Thankfully, I didn't choose abnormalities that have really extreme, gruesome ways of killing an employee. Like I didn't. There's this one called Porcupus. He makes your head explode. Though I still chose some fairly gruesome ways that people can go out. Crumbling armor will decapitate someone, as an example. So we can't really show it to their full extreme. We can always have a way to release fake blood while still on stage. So maybe it's like we get something to activate, or it's like we have them, I don't know. That's not my department to improvise on. So here's some hopes and ambitions I'm gonna just say, which is we can start doing more dark plays, since Crucible was dark, obviously. Lobotomy Corporation is incredibly dark, and all that goes for mostly anything related to Project Moon. And video games to theater plays becomes a actually popular thing. Oh, I thought I had another slide. I'll just say it. So it was just meant to be like some context as to some stuff. Anyway, that's all for now.